Are you curious about bodies, pleasure, and possibilities? And what about curious about what others are up to on the planet when it comes to pleasure, sex, and play? Have you considered what pleasure can do for your life, your body, and your bank account? Do you know something magical, delightful, and out of this world orgasmic is not only possible for you, but totally available to you? If you're ready to be the magical, sexual, sexy beast you know you can be, and you just need the tools to get there, you're in the right place. Now, here is the host of The Pleasure Zone, sex, relationship, and intimacy coach and holistic health practitioner, Milica Jelenic.
Welcome, my sweet pleasure seekers. Tonight, we are going to be diving into find out how we can have more body positivity, which will in turn increase our sexual confidence. So how great is that? Because I know a lot of people, even if they've been with their lovers for years, lovers for years, there's often the question in relationships, if there isn't a lot of communication as to whether whatever you're doing is creating any arousal, is it working, or is your partner enjoying it? So what I do know is that in relationships where there is a lot of communication and of course consent and creativity and curiosity, those relationships thrive. Now, when there is less communication, it often leads to both less body positivity and also less sexual confidence. Some of these things are traits that we have had passed on generationally. Some of these are things that you don't even realize are the epigenetics of our way of being. You might have been growing up in a family where body positivity was definitely not something that was important, and maybe even to the extreme where body shaming was more of a constant. It was something that you were seeing all the time, and also something that was common and acceptable to body shame, either body shaming yourself or being body shamed by other family members. So I know that in my family, when I look into kind of the history and the mystery of my family, my mom has definitely memories of my grandmother pointing out all the time that she was chunky, even though in the same voice, she would be like, can you just finish up all the leftovers? I don't want any leftovers. And then 5 minutes later, she would tell my mom she was chunky. And it's an interesting thing because for me, even when I was like a size 6 or a size 8 in my life, which was when I was like 39, 40, I was like a size 8. Even at that point, I had this imagination in my brain that I always looked pregnant or chubby, which was strange because that wasn't a reality. And I didn't really have what I would say like an eating disorder connected to that or anything like that, but I definitely had some dysmorphia around my body, especially around having smaller breasts. That was really, really a point of contention for me in my life. I've come to be really happy that I have healthy, happy breasts that, are, happy and healthy, which is important more than anything else. So I think maybe it comes with age, maybe it's the years later. It's hard to imagine, but like I turned 50 this year, which kind of blows my mind in a few weeks. So I think the attitude around bodies changes as well. And I think if you've been working on looking at more about body love, but I think body positivity is the lingo of the day. If you're looking at how you can love and appreciate your body, then as you age, hopefully you love and appreciate your body more and more, and are grateful for the days when it works, and are grateful for the days when you are feeling really confident in your body and like able to function and all of that stuff. So it is something to definitely look at when you're sitting there, maybe you're in your 20s or 30s or early 40s or something, and you're like, wow, I could have this, like my body could look so much better. I could be so much more tight in the butt, or I could have this, or I could have that. That's as much as like the desire to have that and the goal to have that can be nice for you, especially if it's something that your body actually wants, it can also be really like a place where your body is feeling insulted or shamed or judged. So if you personally were insulted, shamed, and judged all the time, how would you react to whoever was insulting, shaming, and judging you? Would you be like, woohoo, I'm so excited to hang out with you who insults, shames, and judges me? Or would you try and disconnect? So, a lot of times, what I see with people when they have had a lot of body shaming, and if it is epigenetic, where it's gone on through generations and it's almost like part of the makeup of who people are, if that has happened, it is a cycle that needs to be broken because it is a form of abuse, self abuse, and then it can also carry out to become abuse of others. You know, you could end up subconsciously abusing your children and not realizing it. And then they take that on, they take on those thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and they make them real. And then they'll actually create issues in their bodies based on all the different stressors that they're feeling. So it's not just that they take it on because mommy said so or daddy said so. They take it on, it becomes a stressor. That stress that's underlying an undercurrent that never seems to change is something that is going to be what ends up creating the health issues. It's that ongoing stress that creates the issues. So who am I and like why am I talking about this? My name is Milica Jelenic, and I have been talking about sex and intimacy for well over 10 years here on the Pleasure Zone. And one of the things I also love to do in my daily life and my daily practice is that I work with people as a holistic health practitioner. I look at different things in their life, whether it's emotional connections to what is creating distress in their body, or whether it's physiological, whether it's an external environmental thing that's happening, whether it's an internal environmental thing that's happening. We look at all of it. We look at it from a holistic perspective and a non-judgmental perspective, because in order to work with somebody holistically, you also can't be in judgment of them or their choices, but you can guide them into the targets that they're desiring to achieve. So one of the things that I'd really like to do with this episode is be able to give you some really empowering tools that are going to help you be able to shift your mindset around how you perceive you and your body, how you even perceive maybe your partner. Maybe you've been shaming yourself a lot and then you're projecting it onto your partner, which happens quite a lot. You know, you might think, oh, I'm gaining weight. Maybe that's an unconscious thought, but then you're projecting it out into your partner going, oh, my partner's gotten so heavy or something. Like there's these things happen. We often don't realize how much we project onto our partners. Our partners are mirrors for us. So they are there to show us what we need to be aware of in ourselves. So whether it's something that we're seeing in their bodies, whether we're seeing it in their behaviors, the first thing to do is to look at you, you know, before judging your partner, just look at you and go, where have I been that and done that? Am I doing that and being that? And if you really dig deep, I would say that 99.9% of the time you are on some level being or doing that. And then you need to evaluate what it is that you're benefiting from that, because the chances are you're benefiting something from that. It could be creating entanglements, which can be messy, but entanglements also keep things in balance, right? And we don't always want to change our entanglements, because once you get out of entanglements, all the balance can shift. And then how do we get back to homeostasis? It's tricky. So, change is a tricky one, but it's also necessary and important. And part of the roadmap to body positivity requires change, requires the way that you think about yourself to change. It also requires that in order to have sexual confidence, you need to go out of the place of feeling lack of confidence into a place of confidence, right? So that is a change. And that can create it creates an imbalance for a while all the dynamics start to change within your relationship, within yourself to you, within you and your relationship to your lover. So it's something where as those as all of those things shift and change, we have to re-navigate, right? So as your confidence in yourself changes, even in your body image, if you start to feel good about yourself and you're around a partner who still doesn't feel good about themselves or their body or whatever, their body image, then on a daily basis, you might still be picking up all their thoughts, feelings, and emotions around how they're judging themselves. And that can be hard to watch. One of the other things that can happen is that you could fall back into old patterns. So it's really helpful when you're working on this, if you do have a partner, that you're working on this together. If you're the one coming into a relationship with these issues and your partner doesn't have them, you can always utilize them um, as a really good sounding board to ask really frank questions to. I don't know about you, but my husband is very good with frank questions. He is not one of those people who just gives compliments out of the blue or for like manipulating. He's just genuinely, if you get a compliment, it's like a big deal. So asking a question that will lead to a truthful answer is what I'm guaranteed. So, and I find that really helpful, right? It's like if somebody says to you, "Oh, no, I really like that soup you just made," but they really don't. And then you keep making it, and 25 years later, they're like, "You know that stupid soup you make all the time? I hate it." Well, cool. Why didn't you tell me 25 years ago? Yeah. So those pieces of honesty can be really helpful so that you can actually get into something that you enjoy. Say if I knew 25 years ago you didn't like that soup, I could look up new recipes and find another soup. I would anyway though, because I don't like eating the same thing all the time. I do like having some things that are like reliable that I'm like, oh yeah, go back and have like grandma's soup and other grandma's stew. And there are some that I find like reliable foods that I go to for comfort. But there's lots of things I like to try out. So change is great. So what we're going to be looking at in this particular episode are different things that we can do, especially to improve um, our body image, because our body image does impact our sexual confidence. So we're going to look at how body image impacts sexual confidence. We're also going to create some goals, some targets for body positivity and self-acceptance. We're also going to be learning some simple exercises, which doesn't mean like push-ups or pull-ups. We're talking about visualizations and different things for boosting self-esteem, especially in intimate settings. And we're going to be learning how to celebrate the small wins, because a lot of times we forget to do that. We forget to celebrate the small wins. And then you know what? We end up falling back and thinking that we didn't have any success. But the truth is we did, and we need to celebrate the small wins. Whether it's when you look at yourself and you're like, wow, today I actually looked at myself and I was able to look at myself for more than 5 minutes without having a judgment come up. I had full love and full like receiving of yourself the whole time. And then you might even notice it's like, oh, and then somebody walked in the room and I started comparing myself, and the comparisons are what created the issues. Oh, cool. So now I know that comparison creates issues. Comparison creates a lot of issues, and it can create a lot of issues in relationship, especially. So whether you're comparing yourself to somebody else or your partner's comparing you to somebody else, comparison is like poison. I think that's the simplest way to put it. That comparison is poison, whether you're comparing bodies or you're comparing sexual uh, tactics. I'll call them tactics because it's like warfare. But uh, sexual skill sets, if you're comparing any of that stuff, it can absolutely be detrimental to relationships. So if you can be with your partner in the here and now and be really present with them, with who they are and what they offer you, you're going to find that not only will you start to feel more confident in your body because you're loving in the moment, you're going to love you in the moment, and you're going to love your partner in your presence. And as you are doing that in the very present moment, you're going to be able to see exactly who you're with. You're going to be able to see exactly who you are, but also things from the past don't necessarily have the same impact. It's not that they go away. They don't necessarily have the same impact as they do if you're trying to rehash them all the time without resolution. Because you can rehash issues in order to have resolution. Absolutely. Rehashing them for resolution is one thing. Rehashing them for just the sake of harming your partner is not okay. And that can absolutely break down self-confidence and body image. So if you're always bringing up stuff like, well, when you did blah, 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 and you did this and you did that, all that shame and blame makes can make a person feel really bad about themselves. And it's certainly not going to help the self-confidence. So we want to look at as many different tools as we can in order to have self-confidence, body confidence, and increase sexual confidence. So when we move into the next segment, we're going to be looking at the different ways that body image impacts sexual confidence. And we're also going to be looking at some goal setting too. We'll see how much we can get into there. So we're going to head off to the first commercial break. You're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show, with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. I think that on my commercial, there's something incorrect there. I'm going to have to double check because there is the wrong email address. Anyhow, head over to my website if you do want to connect with me and go on to there. You can always set up a time to have a discussion. I also have, I think you can contact me via email there as well. That would be the best way to get a hold of me because I just realized that my commercial has possibly the incorrect email address. I'll re-listen to that. And how did I miss that? I don't know. Anyhow, so we're talking about body image today and how body image impacts sexual confidence, how we can have a better roadmap to having better confidence, better self-image, better self-body image. So in the last segment, we were talking a little bit about the different things that might affect your body image. Maybe sometimes it's stuff from the past. It can be things that have been passed on to you generationally that would give you different sexual confidence issues, as well as body image issues, whether you're in, you've lived in a home where people have said things about your body. You've been going into different social settings where people have always pointed out different things about your body. I think for me, because I've always had a little tummy, I've always been pointed out as somebody who looks pregnant. Even when I was like my size 6'8" self, I was at Disney World and somebody like put their hand on my belly and it was like a total stranger and congratulated me. To which my hilarious cousin, who was with me at the time, walked me around Disney World going, asking people to get out of the way because the pregnant lady was coming through. So we played that one up really well. But there are times where I'm just like baffled that we're not allowed in this society to even have a little bit of a belly because something about that is so wrong. Either you're pregnant or or people will call you like obese or something. Like you're not allowed to have anything that looks feminine. If we look at like those old images of goddess Willendorf, for example, what a fabulous goddess. She had a round bum and large jugs, and she was all that goddess Willendorf, like the picture of fertility, absolutely. And you don't see a lot of images of goddesses from the past that were through goddess worship. You don't see like tiny little goddesses with no bellies. Their bellies were celebrated. It'd be nice to celebrate bellies again. There's a great dude on Instagram who's a Scotsman. I don't know if you've come across this guy, but he loves bellies and he loves thick legs, as he calls it, with his fabulous accent. Can't remember the dude's name, but man, he's fabulous. I'm sure if you look up Scotsman who loves thick legs, you'll find him on Instagram because he talks about it all the time. But to me, it's a lovely thing to, no matter what the shape of your body is to love your body. I think we forget a lot that whatever your body is right now, whether it was, whether you had surgeries or whether you were born with different things going on, whether you have genetically like small boobs or genetically giant boobs, or you happen to be born to families that produce more fat cells, or you happen to be born to families who have no fat cells, whatever the situation is, what if it's okay? And if you know that your body is malleable, and if you have, created a body that is a certain shape and size for a certain reason, maybe that's okay right now. And what if in creating that body, it created exactly what you have in your life right now? If you're having things going on in your life where you're not liking it, that doesn't mean that your body is the reason for that, but your body could be contributing to different situations of self-confidence, could be contributing to situations to do with sexual confidence and different body image issues, whether you feel like you're too small or too big or too this or too that. I have very rarely come across somebody who fully loves their body, especially in their like 20s and 30s. It's rare. Somewhere around menopause it leaves again. Like there might be like a few 10 minutes somewhere in there that I've actually heard people say that they're fully happy with their bodies. Why? Because we have so many different pressures, especially like looking on social media with all kinds of different body types. Luckily, we do have a lot more variety now and a lot more people that are showing up confidently, showing up and doing things to feel good about themselves, feeling attractive and feeling desirable. Because if we went with the societal norms of, say, the 90s and the early 2000s, those norms that we would see in models were not attainable by the average person. So it's unfair and it's really harsh on the psyche to have to deal with constantly judging and comparing yourself. It's not cool. So if you're thinking that your body is not attractive, what are the chances that you're going to want to go and go off and be naked with people and have sexual encounters. It's pretty slim. The other thing that it does too is that you could have negative body image, but you're wanting to prove your self-worth and that you're lovable. So you're doing kind of the opposite, where you're almost becoming more, I would say, more sexually active, maybe sometimes without any thought or care about what's going on. So promiscuous is not a word I like, but that's the word that's coming up. So you might find that you're feeling promiscuous just in order to prove that you are lovable and you are worthy and you are sexy. So sometimes that comes up as, I'll just have sex with anybody who likes me, anybody who wants me, because wow, somebody wants me. Wow, somebody finds me attractive. So generally, if you are in a place where you are feeling attractive enough, you don't have to prove it to anybody. Also, you'll value your body and sex in a different way. Doesn't mean you won't have fun necessarily. You might still go out and you might value sex in a way that maybe you're getting paid for it. I don't know. Who knows? So I think when we look at how much the way that we see our body impacts the way that we will perform sexually, what we're willing to do, as well as how we might be engaging, whether we're jumping in and just going for it without a thought or a care in the world, or whether you become so restrained and constrained that you never feel good enough or sexy enough to ever have a partner. All of these things happen. So one of the things that we'd really like to do is start to create more body positivity. So how do we do that? How do we start to love ourselves? And it's really important to have like realistic targets and ones that you can look at and you can go, okay, yeah, I've achieved that. So specific, achievable targets, right? So we're going to learn how to set some realistic targets, because one of the things that we need to do in setting realistic targets is to be able to have those little wins that we talked about, I mentioned earlier. So one of the reasons we need like the importance, one of the real reasons for having realistic goals is that as you achieve them, you're going to start to build your self-worth, and that self-worth is going to be genuine. So as you start to notice that you're achieving certain goals and targets, whether that's like, wow, today I did 10 affirmations and I can feel a shift in my mentality, I can feel a shift in my body. Maybe some of your realistic goals were that you walked 100 feet or 1,000 feet, because some people aren't even walking that when you're sitting at a computer most of the day. Maybe you walked 1,000 feet today. Fantastic. Mark it. Put it down as a goal, whether it's in your calendar or you have something where you can give yourself a gold star. Give yourself a reward for achieving a target. So mark it down. A reward doesn't mean food, right? But give yourself the gold star. I know that in school that always worked for me. I wanted and my teacher was so cool. I remember in grade 4, is like, if I wanted a certain color star, even though she maybe had like a star grading system, I'd be like, I want the blue star. And blue might have been like the lowest star. I'd still get the color that I asked for doing well in the homework. So give yourself the thing that is going to be like a reminder that you did a good job. And again, it doesn't have to be expensive and it doesn't have to be food, because a lot of times people are like, oh, I just did that workout. I deserve a treat. Wow. Food does not have to be a reward. Food's a necessity for living. Does not have to be a reward. Rewards can be many other things. So if you're looking for external validation, make it simple, because sometimes we do still look for that. So that external validation of, I got my star, or the external validation of somebody saying to you, you did a good job. If you are always looking for somebody to tell you you did a good job, you're probably not going to be successful at this. So you need to be able to build it internally. Congratulate yourself, give yourself the gold star if you need to have something external to look at. But if you're looking for others to validate you, the one way you can do it is if you are in like a support group, that can be helpful where everybody's looking for validation. However, you still need to find that validation for you first, or you will become dependent on the group validating you. And then if you ever lose the group, that's going to just turn into a vicious, never-ending cycle seeking approval from others. So we also want to, become really confident with our own self-acceptance, because as you do that, you won't have the need to always please others. So the more you actually accept yourself, love yourself, and have it's not that you don't care about others, it's that you're not prioritizing everybody else first. It's that whole concept of put the gas mask on you first, and then you can help others. So you won't feel like you have to always meet others' expectations. You're going to be able to meet your own first, and then you can put the gas mask on others. You also want to do some realistic goals so that you can have long-term motivation. You want to be able to keep going, because one of the biggest things that I see is people will do something for 1 or 2 days. They don't see a shift, they give up, and they don't see it as something that they can, like, they need to have something sustainable, because if they can't sustain it, they're going to drop it. So what is something that you can sustain? Keep it simple, usually under 10 minutes of whatever your target is, whatever the goal is, like whether that's working out, whether that's affirmations or meditation. Make it about 10 minutes, 20 at max, because that's about the attention span of most people. And it's about what you can do to make it sustainable. So also looking at how you've shifted in your own self. So I often have couples who are like, well, I'm doing the work and they're not. And that's never true, by the way. Everybody does the work in their own way, especially when I have couples coming together, and then they have their own coaching separately. They're always working on their own stuff, even though the other partner can't see it. So you need to look at your own personal growth. That's number one, because your partner may or may not ever see it, and it's not about them actually validating you. So one of the other things is that you want to be able to feel rewarded by all these things you're doing. So what is something that would help you feel rewarded? If that is that you can have more deeper connections in your intimate life, fantastic. If you can also set sexy target goals too, that can be helpful, that can create some sense of fulfillment. So it's like, you know what? This whole week I was able to stay on target, and I did all the things that I planned to do for feeling better about myself. And if you're doing this with your partner, then maybe at the end of the week, you both go, you know what we're going to do? We're going to have like an hour of sexy play. Like, we're going to set the time aside. We're going to make the time for each other. And that becomes a way of motivating you to keep going too. It also is going to help with helping you feel loved. And it's not necessarily about your partner praising you, but it's about connecting. So a lot of times if we're looking for approval, we're looking for connection. And if you do have a partner and you can create that connection with your partner, it's really helpful. We're going to head to our next commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some tips on focusing on getting internal validation rather than external validation. And then we will keep on going with this conversation so we can build self-esteem. You're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show, with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. Tonight we're talking about increasing our self-esteem, especially through body image, and also sexual confidence. They go together. Definitely they go together. So if your body image is off, it's going to affect your sex life. You can try and fake it in the bedroom and be like, no, I'm great. But if your partner is admiring your body and loving your body and you're enjoying sex with them, and then all of a sudden they're not there and you don't feel so good about yourself, then you're still looking for external validation. And it's going to be a need to have a shift in your mindset in order to feel that energy about yourself without having to have your partner be the one to provide that for you. So when you have it for yourself and then your partner just gets to be the one who adds into that, it's just like adding spice to food. It just makes it so much better. The food was probably already all right, but then you add some spice to it and comes even better. Fantastic. So a lot of times what I've noticed is that when people are talking about setting goals, they actually don't really know what that means. So how do you set goals? How do you focus on the goals? How do you focus on those goals instead of everybody else's opinions? So one of the things when you're setting targets of any kind is you need to know how your targets or your goals align with your values. Like what's important to you. Even when you're talking about business, like what's important to you is your core value to make more money? Is your core value to create relationships? Is your core value to, I don't know, be in service to others? Like what is the core value that's keeping you going? So even when it comes to your self image and your body image, what are some of the things that really matter to you? You might have a lot of thoughts floating around, like you might feel, well, it's really important that when I walk in a room, people notice me so I feel sexy, or it's like really important that I'm healthy because I know that, there's been stuff and I just want to make sure that I'm healthy, whatever that means to you. So what are the things that you feel are really at the core of why you would like to have better body image, and what's at the core of why you would like to have more fun and pleasurable, confident sex? So if your body image is only connected to what others think of you, or what you think others think of you, or what you think of yourself, but maybe you don't really because you're just hearing noise in your head and comparing yourself, which is really awful. Yuck, it's vomit. So what really matters to you is your health. So if it is your health, for example, instead of saying, or if it's like your health or your vitality or your vigor, then one of the things that you might want to look at and pay attention to and put energy on is instead of saying things like, oh, I need to lose weight, I want to lose weight, I want to get rid of this, blah, blah, blah. I was talking to a woman today who was like, if I could just cut all this off. And I was like, yeah, if you could cut all that off, what would you be? You you would be you'd have to have surgery, which is kind of against your belief systems, because it was a person who wouldn't necessarily do that personally. It's not that it's like a religious thing, it's personally, it's against your belief system. So I was like, so yeah, if that's against what you would believe, why would you go against you? Why would you go against your core values so that you would have like some kind of temporary fix? Because this is not going to be a long-term fix to just cut the fat off. That's not a long-term fix. Very rarely will that actually work. So you need a mind shift change, right? So instead of, I need to lose weight, I want to lose weight, I want to lose 35 pounds. What if you looked at it in a different way, as in, I choose, and I am so lucky to be able to choose, because that in itself is a privilege. I choose to incorporate movement into my life. I choose to incorporate more laughter in my life. I choose to incorporate calm. I choose to incorporate more I don't know, I was going to say commitment, but I don't feel like that's the word. So there's more, there's lots of things you could be choosing to have. I choose to have more energy in my life. So the things that you can do, like I choose to have more movement in my life. You can do that. I choose to have more joy in my life. You can also choose that too. You can find things that bring you joy and then step into them and have them on a regular basis. And you can be specific. Like I choose to have more movement 2 to 3 times a week or 3 times a week. I choose to have joy for at least 10 minutes every day. And these are things that you absolutely have choice in. You can shift the mindset and choose into these things. So you also want to avoid, like I was saying, comparison is like really poisonous. Avoid comparison. So looking at different people and you know, their achievements or their body, or look at their hair, it's so lovely, look at their makeup, they're so blah blah blah. You know, you could really go down a rabbit hole of feeling really crummy about yourself if you compare all the time your life to somebody else's life. What if you look at where you were and where you've come to? And not just like I'm looking at, some people might compare finances, or, you know, where was I 15 years ago and where am I now? Well, completely different relationship, completely having my own this, my own that. That's a little bit external validation as well. Like, look, I have a home, I have a thriving business, I have this, I have that. But where am I at emotionally is a very different place than where I was at 15 years ago. Very different place than where I was at 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. So I look at my own life and look at it as, where's my growth rather than comparison. And don't get me wrong, there are moments where I still kind of compare and go, oh, wow, that person does similar work to me. And boy, they really are out there and they're really getting far more recognition than I am. Oh, man. Yeah, that'll happen sometimes. And then I have to ask, like, what are they doing different than I am? Am I willing to be that? Usually not. So that is why I'm where I am and they are where they are, right? So just figuring out what works for you. So you also want to do some targets that you can actually measure. Like if you start off, you know, your process of self-esteem and you might be at like a, say from a 0 to 10, 0 being no self-esteem, 10 being high self-esteem, you might start off at say like a 2. And then in a few weeks and you check in and you're like, where's my self-esteem at now? Oh, it's like a 3 or a 4. You can actually track these things and be able to look at that and then go, oh, look at that, I've had improvement. And it might go down and it might go up, and that's okay. But you then can look at it and go, okay, you know what? I choose to have more and more joy. I choose to, whatever it is with your targets, to be able to achieve them. So you can look at these things You can journal them, you can track them. If you like Excel spreadsheets, track on Excel spreadsheets by all means. I love a good spreadsheet. If you like to write by hand in a journal, write by hand in your journal. Whatever works for you, just as a way for you to check in and be able to track and target these things. So you also want to be able to celebrate any of the small successes, like little progresses, like, look, I did this for 3 days in a row, 4 days in a row, 5 days in a row. I have a friend who's done Peloton for like 4 years in a row, and like every day pretty much. And even when she's like away from her Peloton machine, she does like Peloton exercises, and she's forever like putting her progresses up. And it's amazing. I think she's technically done enough miles to have walked around the world like twice or something. It's phenomenal. So she has a thing that tracks that, right? Like you can use these apps to track your progress as well if you'd like to use an app to track your progress. That will also increase self-esteem. And in effect, it will probably also improve your body image, because you're going to be able to look at yourself and acknowledge that you're achieving targets. And you're probably feeling better. You're probably having more energy. You're probably looking after yourself, doing a lot more self-care. So that's important too. So we're moving into a place of being excited about our bodies rather than thinking that they're problematic. Now, there's always things we can improve on, but that doesn't mean they're problems. That just means that our bodies maybe need a little bit more vitamins, a little bit more rest, a little bit more movement. It doesn't mean that they're broken. It just means that they are asking for something and we need to listen. So some of the things I've mentioned, like shifting the language, is important. And we're going to talk more about that when we come back from this commercial break. You're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show, with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is The Pleasure Zone with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. Tonight, we are all talking about how to how to increase our image, like body image. How do we feel about our bodies? We're looking at all of that and how that impacts your sexual performance and your desire and your confidence in the bedroom. And some of the things that we need to really look at in particular is, how do we practice and how do we change some of these things, these narratives that are going on in our heads? How do we change them so that we can improve our body image and our self-talk? How do we improve our self-talk? Well, a lot of people talk about positive self-talk. Now, one of the things I have issue with that positive self-talk is that we often don't believe what we're saying to ourselves. Like, we might say my body is strong and capable, but we don't believe it, right? So what I like to look at, and I had a really great teacher who taught a different kind of method of stepping into and evolving your affirmations from a place where you might not believe it to a place where after time you get that it's actually, there's some truth in that you can choose into it. So I love what he always did was that he would add things like I choose, or I feel, or I sense, or I smell, right? So he would use senses to assist. And I think choosing is one of the easiest ones to start to play with. So say instead of saying my body is strong and capable, or my body is sexy, I have a sexy body. If I don't believe that, then I could say, I choose to see the sexiness that my body is. Well, I choose to see the sexiness that my body is. There's truth in that. And then eventually I might be able to say, I see the sexiness that my body is. And then eventually I might be able to say, I am the sexiness that my body is. And then it might be like, I am sexiness. I am. Oh, cool. It evolves. So you can see how there's a difference. There's like an energetic difference between saying my body is sexy to it's like, if I don't believe that, then I choose to know and feel the sexiness that my body is. Yeah, I choose to know and feel that. And as I'm choosing into that, my body will show me how and remind me how it is. It has that sexiness. Doesn't mean everybody finds me sexy, and I certainly wouldn't think they would, but it would mean that I will know what it is for me. And as a reflection, I'll reflect that out. And maybe the people who are attracted to me will be able to see, oh, there's a confident body. There's a person who's got that confidence. That confidence is going to reflect in relationships so that you can share that with your partner too. You can be able to share confidently with your words and communication and everything. So one of the other things I would say to do is like, if you are watching a lot of social media that's driving you crazy, find other influencers that won't drive you so crazy, that you're not judging yourself or comparing yourself to. Just find new influencers if you are insisting on using it as a medium in your life. Otherwise, walk away from it. So body gratitude is key, and we've talked about this a lot on shows, and just being able to walk through your whole body with gratitude. And I've done entire episodes dedicated to body gratitude, being grateful from your head all the way down to your toes for all of the senses that are experiencing all of the you, including interoception and proprioception and all of it. Being able to use gratitude for assisting you to feel better about yourself. You scanning your body and being able to go, oh, I'm so grateful for my hair. I'm so grateful that I have hair. I'm so grateful. And if you don't feel gratitude for it, it's like, I choose to feel grateful for my hair. I choose to feel grateful for my body. You can choose into that too. And scan and love and, hug yourself, get hugs from friends, get those dopamine hits going. And then also, as you're starting to look at, I think I have a couple minutes left. I want to be able to get into a few things that you can do with your partners, because that's always fun. And so some of the exercises that you can do in intimate settings, like with your partners, is to be able to share some of the things that you've been doing for yourself, but do it with your partner. So if you're scanning their body, you can have gratitude for their body. Like, oh, I'm really grateful for your arms, and I'm grateful for your beautiful, sexy hands. Have fun with it. It's going to help you break down barriers. It's going to help you to feel vulnerable, which is going to also help the intimacy. It's going to help you to release fear. It's going to help you to be able to have more confidence inside the bedroom and outside the bedroom. So you can visualize your own body and have body appreciation, but you can also have body appreciation for your partner and visualizing their body and having body appreciation for them. And you can do different affirmations. We talked about looking in front of the mirror and looking at yourself. And can you handle looking at yourself for 5 minutes without judging yourself? That's a fun one to do. And definitely expressing with someone else, even if it's not your lover, being able to share words, even with your best friend, about how you feel about your desires, about what you'd like in life, about anything, because sometimes putting those words out to the universe helps them come to fruition. So if you have anything where you're like, you know what, I just don't know if I can actually feel that confident. I don't know if I can take all these steps. Just take one of them to begin with. Take one that you remember that resonates with you. And as you do that on a regular basis, a daily basis for maybe 5 or 10 minutes a day, note that you are you're achieving your targets. So keep going.
Thank you for choosing to listen to The Pleasure Zone with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic. We'll return next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.